I do want to give you some trigger warnings in advance. This episode will contain talks of serious medical diagnosis and depression. And I'm still going to be honest, and I'm going to keep as much of this in the video as possible without making it too long, but you just sit there and you think about what you may not be able to see because you could possibly die so young. What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Hood Soft Life podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina, and in this podcast, we talk about navigating the challenges that come with growing up in the hood and leaving those challenges behind for a soft life. Growing up in the hood comes with its own set of challenges, but what people don't tend to tell you is not only do those challenges follow you once you've made it out physically, but they tend to intensify. So I'm bringing you along on my journey. I'm going to be honest with you about the struggles and the lessons that I'm learning to achieve a soft life. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how sometimes you need to disappear. I do want to give you some trigger warnings in advance. This episode will contain talks of serious medical diagnosis and depression. If that's something that's a little too heavy for you, I will leave the timestamp below of the key points that we talked about in this episode and what you can do if you feel like you need to take some time away from yourself and go ghost. But with that being said, let's get started. All right, y'all. Welcome back. I have a fresh wash and go. I got some new glasses. Things are moving and changing. We only have 7 more weeks of the school year. If you don't know, I'm a teacher. There's just been a lot that's going on behind the scenes, and we're going to talk about that in today's episode. But more importantly, how are you? I've missed you guys. I'm not even lying. I've missed doing this. I miss you guys so much. I get a lot of engagement more so on TikTok where people are commenting or they're reaching out via DM, but still, I really do appreciate it and I miss y'all so much. And I hope that today's episode will provide people whatever it is that they need. If you ever need something, or if you feel like you want to reach out and you want some advice, or you just want to vent about something that's going on in your life, feel free to reach out via DMs, whether that's on IG or TikTok, both at the HSL pod. You can comment on the YouTube if you feel comfortable enough doing that, or you can reach out to my personal page, which is Sabrina, SABRINAA .LIZET, and all that will be linked down below. But how are you guys doing? I hope you guys had a good week and a good couple of weeks since the last time I've been on the podcast. But we're just going to jump right into it because it has a lot to do with today's episode. So that's pretty much all I have for you. Spring break is over. We've returned to teaching again. We only have a couple more weeks, like I said, before the school year is over. And so I'm just really trying to push through the year, and I will be returning as a teacher again because I'm just not ready to leave yet. But instead of teaching science like what I teach now, I will be teaching Spanish, and I'm very, very excited. Spanish is my first language. It's something I'm interested in, and I'm hoping to be able to create my own curriculum. And if that's the case, I'm going to be super excited just to teach the kids about the language, the culture, the music, the food, all the things that I could possibly fit into a short 10 to 12 weeks because it's only a 4-quarter. But I'm very, very excited about that, and I feel very satisfied with where I'm at right now. So let's go ahead and jump right into today's topic. Sometimes you just have to disappear. All right, y'all, I have a story time for you, and it is pretty difficult. So we're just going to do our best here to get through it as much as possible, but all of that pain is for a purpose, and I truly believe in that, so I'm just going to hold on to that as I tell you guys the story. But after posting my last episode, I was just extremely tired all the time, and I could not figure out why that was the case. I wasn't really sure what was going on, and I've experienced burnout and I've experienced depression before, so I know what that looks like, but this was a level of exhaustion I had never felt a day in my life. Literally, I live in a studio apartment. It's not that big. It's great for me, but it's not that big. It's not that far of a walk to the bathroom or the kitchen area, or literally my bed is right over there out of the frame. And I would just find myself not even being able to stand for long periods of time. I would have to literally lay down. Sitting down was requiring too much energy. I needed to lay down. I needed to close my eyes. It was very difficult to do anything like wash my dishes, do my laundry, script out episodes, or do anything. And it went on for a couple of weeks, and I was so annoyed and so frustrated because I couldn't figure out what was going on. I was just so upset with myself, really, because it was just you have stuff to do and you're not doing it. I barely even had enough energy to go to work, let alone get through the day. I have no idea how I was doing that. But I was able to get through the day, and as far as I know, it didn't look like I was struggling that much, but it was literally like as soon as I would come out of work, I would have to lay down and go to sleep at 4:30, 5:30 in the afternoon, and it would never be enough sleep, and I couldn't figure out what was going on, and I wouldn't even want to eat sometimes, or I wouldn't even have enough energy literally to like go in the shower. Like I would have to shower and like immediately lay down right after I got out. It was just so draining and so exhausting. And so I had scheduled an appointment with my doctor to try and figure out like what is going on, like why am I so tired all the time? And on top of that, I had to get some other medical testing done because I have horrible periods. TMI for anybody that doesn't do blood, but I have really bad periods, and I even had to leave work one time in an ambulance because of them. So I needed some medical testing for that, but I also needed to get some medical testing done because my biological father has a medical condition and he's not doing very well from what I know. And it's a genetic condition, and some of my other siblings also have them, so I needed to figure out if I had it as well. And so I had a lot of doctor's appointments in such a short period of time, like literally within like 3 or 4 days. I had 4 different doctor's appointments, 2 on the same day sometimes, and I was just really exhausted and drained because I was trying to figure out like what's going on. I'm struggling with this and I'm struggling with that, and I don't know if I have this. And so I had to take some time out of work to really focus on figuring out what was wrong with my health and really just figuring out what do I do. And I can't remember which doctor appointment came first, but I want to say it was the doctor's appointment where I found out that I have a condition called polycystic kidney disease. And for anybody who doesn't know what that is essentially a serious medical condition where there are numerous cysts that can grow on your kidneys, causing your kidneys to enlarge and eventually leading to kidney failure that would require either dialysis or a kidney transplant. There are 2 different types of PKD or polycystic kidney disease, and there's PKD1 and PKD2. Essentially, from what I've understand based off of the research and just conversations with my specialist, one gene is a little more aggressive than the other, and PKD1 is more aggressive, and you start to see your symptoms as soon as like your 40s and 50s. Where like somebody with PKD2 would probably see their symptoms in their 60s and 70s. And I already had an idea which kind of genetic disease I had because my biological father's only about in his 50s. And so I was diagnosed with PKD, and it was a very hard diagnosis because from what I understand, like my dad is not doing well, and you get an idea of like what your future could possibly look like. Of course, even though like it's genetic, there's no guarantee like your route will be the same as somebody else's, even though like the gene was passed down to you. You just don't know. And so I was trying to deal with that information, and I didn't know which kind of PKD I had at the time. I took an educated guess based off of how old my dad is and, you know, where his condition is at from what I've heard. Things move so quickly, like you get a diagnosis and then all of a sudden you're going to see a specialist and you have to do genetic testing and you're getting blood drawn and you're doing this and you're doing that. And it was honestly so overwhelming. And I was like, I knew it was a possibility, but it's just so different when somebody tells you like, hey, you have this condition, and you just don't know like what that's going to look like for you. And so once I found out, like I got a meeting with a nephrologist the next week that's a kidney specialist, and I started doing my testing, and she starts explaining a little bit more like what that is and what does that look like. And you know, they always tell you like not to worry, like you're gonna be all right. It's a good thing that you found out so early. And she was still talking, and it's kind of like the movies where it's just like their voice just starts to fade out, and you can't really hear what they're saying because you're just so like focused on the news that you just had. So I'm just sitting there and I'm listening to what she's saying, and I'm trying to gather like all the information. Mind you, I'm still struggling with exhaustion, and I'm telling her that I'm like, I'm so tired. Like, does that have anything to do with this? And she says like, no, that's not typically a symptom, but I'm not sure. Some research says yes, some research says no. So I really don't know. And like I had a really horrible headache the day before, and I don't typically get headaches. I've never had a migraine as far as I've known. And she does tell me like a rare occasion or a rare symptom is brain aneurysms with this medical condition. And she was like, if you ever have a horrible headache or a really bad headache, do not pass go. Go to the emergency room and tell them that you have PKD. And so I'm looking at her like, this would have been nice to know the second I found out I had PKD. And I'm explaining to her like I had a horrible headache, like that was so debilitating I couldn't even like make it through the rest of my workday, just barely. And she was like, next time go to the emergency room. And so you hear like you could possibly already, die early or die young because you have polycystic kidney disease, or if you have a symptom like brain aneurysms, like that could also take you out. And it was a lot of information. It was a lot of information to take in, and I still had other medical testing to do. And I found that out on a Thursday, I want to say. So I still had to go to work the next day and, just show up all smiles and pretend like there was nothing wrong. And I don't even know how I did that. And I feel like some of my kids noticed like I was going through a lot. And I kept having to leave for doctor's appointments. So, kids ask questions and stuff. And I would just like bawl my eyes out like whenever I had the chance. And work was just a distraction. But they're asking me like, why do you always have to leave for a doctor's appointment? And I'm just like, I just have stuff that's going on. And it was hard to process. And on top of like my exhaustion, I wasn't ready to come back on like in front of the camera and just talk about like my diagnosis or just talk about anything. I was just so depressed. Like I had 2 doctor's appointments the next day, and I live in Southeast DC, and I had to go all the way to Georgetown for these doctor's appointments. And so I go to my next doctor's appointment. I come home early because I had to leave work early, and I'm just bawling my eyes out. I'm just so exhausted and I'm drained, not just physically, but I'm so tired of the medical testing. I'm so tired, and I just got this diagnosis, and I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, what does that mean? And of course, you go straight to Google, you start researching things. I'm not dumb though. Like, I know what is a reliable source and what's not. And regardless of like what you look at, like the facts are there. And they tell you like PKD is aggressive and you could see kidney failure as soon as your 40s or your 50s. And like you start doing the math, like I'm 24 and I'll be 25 next month. And you start thinking like, damn, I only have like 25 years of, I'm lucky. Like, I don't know what my future is going to look like. I don't know if I could have other symptoms later on. And then like I'm tired and I'm not doing the podcast. I'm not doing anything. And so I'm like, I'm wasting time. Like, now for sure your time is numbered. Like, of course, we all know that we got to go at some point. We all know that we're going to die. We all know like that day is all going to come for us, but we don't know when. And to get a diagnosis like that, it's just like, okay, you have an idea of like when that could be. And also to have a biological parent who is struggling right now with the same genetic condition that you have, and they're only in their early 50s, early to mid 50s. You have an idea of like what your future can look like. And then you start wondering like, am I going to have kids? Am I going to get married? Am I going to be able to build my dream home? Am I going to be able to build my business and actually see it flourish? Like, am I going to live long enough for that? And this is why like I couldn't come in front of the camera, because I just couldn't talk about it without crying. And I'm still going to be honest, and I'm going to keep as much of this like in the video as possible without making it too long. But like, you just sit there and you think about like what you may not be able to see because you could possibly die so young. And I was just so depressed. Like I got my diagnosis on a Thursday. I had a couple other doctor's appointments on Friday. And as soon as I got out of those doctor's appointments and I got home, I just bawled my eyes out for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And I would just lay, like, I took a shower and I lay down. I'm just crying and I'm crying and I'm crying and I'm Googling and I'm learning more about the condition. And it's just like, then you start thinking, like, well, do you even want to have kids? Because you could possibly pass this on to them. You don't know what this looks like. And I also am not like close to like my family, and I don't live anywhere near my friends who are pretty much my family. And so like they were aware that I had gotten my diagnosis, and I had to like step away from a couple of days and just be like, I don't want to talk to anybody because I'm just so depressed. I'm exhausted and I'm tired, and like, I would literally just go to work and I would come home and I would cry my eyes out and just lay down and go to sleep. And I wouldn't really eat. I wasn't going to the gym. I wasn't doing anything. And I was just so depressed. And that was all I could really think about. And like, when you get a diagnosis like that and like your kidneys filter out stuff that's in your body. So it's a major organ. Like, you need them. And so it's like there's certain things that you should avoid to ensure that you don't cause any more damage or any more problems to your kidneys. I'm trying to figure out, like, well, what is that? Like, what course of action can I take to make sure that my kidneys are healthy, to make sure that I'm healthy and that I don't cause any damage to myself and my health in the future? And thankfully, like, I found out early there's no signs of kidney failure, which I'm very, very thankful for. And my nephrologist was like, you don't really have to change anything right now because there's nothing wrong. And I was just like, well, why would I wait until there's something that is wrong? Like, I would like to know what I shouldn't be doing right now so that it's not an issue. And thankfully, I don't drink and I don't smoke and I don't do any recreational drugs or anything like that. So it's already a major win for me in terms of like certain things. And I do like to go to the gym. And I think if anything, like, I would just want to be a little more active and change a little bit more of what I eat, just to make sure like that I'm trying to take care of my body as much as possible in the best way that I can and I know how. And obviously, like, continuing to learn more about like polycystic kidney disease and what that could look like. And I think the other thing that's difficult with finding out something like that is that, especially like on the internet, nobody really talks about that kind of stuff. Like, you don't hear people talking about like them being diagnosed with polycystic kidney disease or whatever, unless you like really go looking for it. And that was the other thing too. It's just like, it feels like you're the only person who is going through that, and nobody knows like how you're feeling or what you're going through or what you're struggling with. And thankfully, like, I don't have a close relationship with my siblings from my dad's side, but they do reach out to me, which I appreciate. My older sister, the one who told me like she was diagnosed and that I should look into it as well. And so I reached out to her and I was just like, how do you cope with this? And, she's telling me more information and she's telling me more stuff that I didn't see on Google. And of course I start to panicking and I start to crying again, because I'm just like, well, like, what is my life going to look like? And I just allowed myself to feel those feelings and just to sit in that emotion for a while, because at first I tried to brush it off and go back to work all smiles that week and pretend like everything was good, and it wasn't. And so that first like few days after finding out, after that weekend of like crying all the time, I kind of just like brushed it underneath the rug and was like, oh, I'm okay, I'm all right, da da da. And then the week after, I was just so depressed once again. I'm like, I didn't let myself feel those feelings. I kind of thought that because I had to show up to work again, that I could just ignore it and use work as a distraction, but I really couldn't. I really needed to take that time to just feel those feelings and to go through what I was going through and just to be honest about it. And there's nothing wrong with feeling those feelings when you're struggling with something, whatever the case may be, whether it's mental health issues, you're going through a spiritual battle, you get a medical diagnosis, if you're going through something in a relationship, whether that's platonic, family, romantic, whatever the case may be, feel those feelings and give yourself that time, because if you just try to ignore it, like, at some point, like, the box is going to explode and it's going to come out one way or another. So you don't want to be in a situation where you try to sweep it under the rug and at some point you step on the rug and now everything then came out on the other side. So that was something that I had to really go through and just experience for myself. During that time of finding out my medical diagnosis, being tired all the time, all the other medical testing that I was going through, I really just needed to take time for myself and just focus on my health and, my life behind this camera. When the camera turns off and the mic cuts off, I have a real life, and I do my best to show you my real life without, giving you every single thing, trying to keep some things private and for myself. And I remember just like thinking after the last episode I had released, like, oh, I need to release another video and just talk about how I'm going to take some time away and da-da-da-da. And I didn't even have the energy for that. Like, I didn't even have the energy to pick my tripod up from across the room and bring it to this side of the room. I didn't have any energy for that, let alone to sit up in here for another half hour or whatever and tell you guys, like, it's important to take a break and, take care of yourself and all that extra stuff. I didn't have the energy to do that, and I felt guilty, and I was beating myself up, and I was just like, you have stuff to do, why are you laying down, why are you so tired? And I was just so frustrated with the fact that I was exhausted, and I was just like, am I gonna be the generational pattern breaker? Am I just gonna be like everybody else in my family because I'm being lazy, I'm not doing anything, and I have things that I'm supposed to do, and here I am just laying down again. Here I am just sleeping again 4 hours in the middle of the day when I could have gone to the gym and done this and done that. And there was just so much like chatter going around, like while I was struggling with just barely staying awake, let alone being able to stand or walk around or do what I needed to do in my day-to-day life. And I was just beating myself up and just worried about anything and everything else. And the biggest thing I was worried about was giving y'all an explanation for why I needed to take some time away, when in reality, I don't owe anybody an explanation. And the same thing goes for you. When you're going through something, when you're going through life, when life is lifing, you don't owe anybody an explanation for anything. If you need to take that time away for yourself, just do it. Just do it. And if people ask you questions, if you're comfortable enough, you can answer the questions. When you come back around, if you want to talk about it, then you do it then. But if you're not ready, if you're drained emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, don't even bother. Don't even bother. Do not put somebody else's needs before your own. And that's not even really a need. To go out of your way to explain yourself to somebody, that's not even something that they need. And if anybody feels entitled to you giving them an explanation for why you're taking a break for yourself, you need to tell them to go somewhere, because you don't owe them anything. Okay, so it's now the end of April, and when I got my diagnosis, it was about mid-March, so it's been a little bit over a month now, and just taking that time to really deal with that and soak that in and go through what I was going through and get to a point where I felt comfortable enough to start scripting out episodes and thinking about coming back to the podcast and stuff like that. I really took some time to just think about what I've learned throughout this process, and just with getting my medical diagnosis and going through that. And the first thing that I learned was, like, sometimes you just have to go ghost. You just have to disappear. And we get this notion, or we get these feelings inside of ourselves that we don't get to do that. We don't get to just turn the lights off, for lack of a better word, and focus on ourselves. We don't get the opportunity to just lay down and kick our feet up without feeling like we owe somebody something, whether it's ourselves or whether it's somebody else. We always feel like we need to tell somebody what we're about to do, or we need to justify it to ourselves why we need to take some time to just step back from certain things in life. And in all honesty, you don't need to do that. Like, going through this made me feel like I was just so lazy, and it made me look at myself differently, because I feel like I always preach, like, take the time that you need for yourself. Rest is important, relax, all that extra stuff. And it really showed me, like, I'm not about that life as much as I say that I am. Not yet. It was a good opportunity for me to see, like, I do a great job of telling others how to take care of themselves, and I do a good job of showing up for other people. But here I am berating and literally beating myself up because I'm doing exactly what I told other people to do. And I feel like I owe people a justification for why I'm taking my time away, and I don't owe anybody anything. I really need to focus on myself. If anything, I owe myself this time, because all this stress and all this pushing past exhaustion to give people what they don't even need is gonna just do me more harm. One thing I will say about like going ghost when you need to take care of yourself is make sure that you do the things that make you feel happy, that make you feel fulfilled, that bring you back to life. And I did not do that. I'm going to be 110% honest with you. I did not do that. I laid in my bed. I cried. I Googled and Googled and Googled and Googled until there was no more Googling left to do. And I'm not going to say that I regret that, because that was just, there's nothing I can do. I can't change that. That was the path that I took. But what I will say is that if I ever find myself in a situation like that again, I need to find things that will bring me joy. And I was too tired to go to the gym. Like, I wouldn't even have been able to make it to the car, if I'm being honest with you. But finding something that would have made me happy, or that would have brought me joy, that would have brought a smile on my face during that time, is something that I would definitely do the next time around. Because if I'm being honest, like, there is going to be another time around. We're always going to go through things. We're always going to go through challenges in life. And so if you're going to go ghost, if you are going ghost, if you are ghost right now and you just pop on Instagram or TikTok or, podcasts every once in a while, first of all, I'm grateful that you stopped to listen to this one. And second of all, just make sure that you do something that's going to put a smile on your face, something that's going to make you happy, because it is so easy to go down the rabbit hole. It is just so easy to feed into those negative emotions and those negative feelings. And in all honesty, like, that's what the enemy wants you to do. And I'm going to just sit up in here and be honest. Like, I did exactly what he was looking for me to do. And it took me a certain level of self-awareness to be like, we can't do this for long. Like, I'm going to let you do this for a while. It's important to feel the feelings. Give yourself that time to feel your feelings, but also give yourself a reasonable timeline of like, we can feel these feelings, and then we got to figure out what's next. And we got to figure out that whatever we do next, something that we do has to put a smile on our face. Something that we do has to remind us why we are living, why we are breathing, what our purpose is in life, and do that thing. And for me, we had spring break 2 weeks ago. I just went to the wharf out here, which is like this pier, like on the water and stuff like that. And I would go there for days. I would go there at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and there was nobody there, and just be there by myself. I would go in the afternoon and just work on a podcast, or just sit there and just watch the water. And like, I love being by the water. So that's something that made me very happy. And I'm grateful that even though it took me a couple of weeks, I got to the point where I could do something for myself. And it doesn't have to cost you money. Like, that's the other thing too. I mean, in DC, it cost me money to park, for sure. But I'm grateful that I even just went out and just looked at the water. I didn't have to spend any money on anything. I'm grateful that I could just bring my laptop and my iPad and go to the wharf and do my work for the podcast there, and just lock in and just be surrounded by an environment where I feel the closest to God that I ever feel, which is by the water. And so do that. When you're going through something difficult, when you're going ghost, when you're taking time for yourself, please, 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 please make sure that you find something that will bring you joy. Whatever it is. I don't care if it's reading, journaling, extra prayer. I don't care if it's going for a walk, going to the gym, talking to a friend, something. Find something. Second thing, and I've said this before, is that rest is essential. And I'm going to keep saying that until I'm walking that talk. But just keeping that in mind and just having to remind myself, like, it's okay to go to sleep. It's okay to relax. It's okay to take a nap. Honestly, like, as much as I wanted to, I couldn't even fight going to sleep. I was so tired. Like, if I wanted to do something for the podcast, there was no way I was going to be able to do it, because it would just happen. I would just wake up and it would be hours later. So make sure that you're taking that time to rest and do whatever it is that your body is telling you to do. And even if you try to fight it, like, just know, like, at some point you're going to be in a losing battle, because your body is going to tell you, hey, we need to take a break. And if you keep ignoring that, at some point you're just going to have to take the break. The way I think about it is like, think about an employee. Your boss keeps telling you, no, you can't take a break. No, you can't take a break. No, you can't take a break. At some point, you're just going to get fed up and say, forget it. I'm going on my break. And if there's a consequence, then there's a consequence. Same thing for your body. Your body's going to tell you a couple of times, hey, it's time to relax. It's time to take a break. And you get to decide what you're going to do with that information. But at some point in time, your body's going to be like, I've told you a couple of times and you're not listening to me, so we're done. Now you have to take the break. I don't care what you say. And oftentimes, the break that your body forces you to take is longer than the one that you would have just taken if you listen to your body the first or second time around. Number 3 is probably the biggest one that sticks with me, and it's that God has everything factored in. While I was depressed and literally just doing nothing but scrolling, I was on TikTok and I came across this video of this guy, and he was like, God has already factored everything in. Every mistake, every delay, whatever it is, he's already had it factored in. And the way he described it was like when you plug in an address in your GPS, it factors in everything. Any red lights, any stop signs, any traffic. God does the exact same thing with your life. He knows exactly what choices you're going to make, and he's already designed a path based on those choices that you make because you have free will, and he's factored it all in for the purpose and the plan that he has for your life. Just hearing that made me rest a little bit easier, knowing like he's factored in the way that I would respond to my diagnosis of PKD. He's already factored in the time that I would need to take to rest and, just grieve, for lack of a better word, this idea of a life that I thought I would have and I could possibly still have. I don't know what the future has in store for me, but when you get a serious diagnosis like polycystic kidney disease, you kind of grieve the life that you thought you were going to have. You kind of get snapped into the reality of like, this is what your life could also be like now. And so it made me rest assured to know that just because I need to take this month, 2 months, whatever, how much ever time I need to take off, just because I need to take this time off from the podcast and from what it is that I actually want to do, that doesn't mean that my plan is never going to happen anymore. That doesn't mean that God's going to take away my purpose and that there's no use for me on this planet anymore. I'm still going to do the things that he wants me to do. I'm still going to do the things that he's calling me to do, the reason that he brought me onto this earth. And as long as I still have air in my lungs and my heart is still pumping blood, like that is proving it true. Just remember that God has factored in anything in your life, and he has not taken away your purpose. He has not taken away the plan that he has for you. He always has a plan to prosper you and not to forsake you. So don't ever feel like because you made a mistake or because you're taking a little bit longer than you thought to grieve that the purpose that he has for your life is going to go anywhere. And this takes nothing that God has for you will miss you to a whole new level because he's already factored it in. He knew exactly what you were going to do. And instead of punishing you for it, because sometimes our brain makes us think that he's going to punish us for it, he gave you the grace and the mercy and the shoulder to cry on that you needed. You don't need to do anything else but take the time for yourself and stay with him. Of course, pray with him, talk to him, be honest with him, and then move how you need to move in a healthy manner. Don't rush the process, but also don't drag your process out. Number 4, your hardships serve a purpose. They're essential to your story and who you're going to become. We will always go through challenges. We've all been through something challenging. We'll all go through something challenging. You might be going through something challenging right now. And it's so easy to just be like, why me? And be so frustrated with that and just feel like there's no purpose. And there's no reason for me to go through this amount of pain. Like, what is the point? Like, this just seems so unfair and so brutal. But in all honesty, we all go through these challenges because they are essential to our story and they help shape us into the person that we are going to become. A lot of the things that I have gone through in the past, like homelessness and stuff like that, they've shaped me to become this person that I am today. The abandonment from my parents has shaped me into the person that I am today, and it will continue to shape me later on as I continue to learn new things about who I am, who I want to be, and as I gain more wisdom. And with my diagnosis, it was hard, and it is obviously still very hard to talk about. But with that in mind, I'm able to realize that, yes, it is hard. Yes, it is challenging. Yes, it is scary because you're kind of just sitting there waiting until a doctor tells you otherwise. It's hard, and you're always going to go through hard things, but they're so essential. Like, all I can really tell you is that imagine if your life was perfect from the time you were born to the time you died. There were no ebbs and flows. There was literally no change in your life, no change in you as a person, no character development, no nothing. As far as I'm concerned, you would literally serve no purpose. And I know that sounds harsh, but it's true because when we go through these challenges and when we go through these things in life, they build our character and they allow us to become the best version of ourselves if we allow it to. It's very easy to become the worst version of yourself because of pain and because of trials and tribulations. But if you allow it, it will also turn you into the best version of yourself. There's always something to learn when you're sitting at rock bottom, or what feels very close to rock bottom. And for me, it was just learning that God has factored in everything that I choose to do in this life. He's factored in every mistake that I've made. He's factored in every decision that I've already made. He's factored in the way that I would grieve my life and what I thought my life was going to be like during this time. And still, at the end of the day, like, he still has a beautiful life plan for me. He still has a beautiful purpose for me. And there's nothing that I could really do to destroy the purpose and the plan and the calling that he has for me. And I don't want to undermine trauma. I don't want to undermine it and pretend like it doesn't exist or pretend like it doesn't make things hard. I don't want to do that. And I also don't want to romanticize trauma. Let's just make that very clear. All I'm saying is that when you're going through trials and tribulations, you still got to count it joy, because at the end of the day, it didn't take you out. And at the end of the day, it will shape you into something better in the future. And you may not always see why you went through something that you went through, and you may not ever see why you went through what you went through, but you still got to count it joy, because at the end of the day, you learned something from that experience. Whether you think you've learned something or not, I promise you that you have. And the last thing that I learned during this time is to lean on God, because he understands suffering. During this time, it was very hard to go to church, and I would literally just show up late so that I wouldn't have to greet anybody. Nobody would know that I was there, and then skirt out the second that church was over. I wasn't really going to Bible study like that because I wanted nothing to do with human beings whatsoever. One day I did go to Bible study, and we started talking about Isaiah 53 and just talking about how Jesus gave up his life for us in the crucifixion. And there was a section in my Bible that talked about how Jesus chose the life of oppression, the life of suffering, the life of trauma, because he wanted to better understand the human experience. And being grateful about the fact that he didn't choose the easy life, he chose the hard life on purpose, and he still got on that cross. He still died for our sins. He still took that beating that was supposed to be for us. He still took that brutal punishment that was supposed to be for us and for our sins. He took it for us instead, so that we wouldn't have to suffer to such a great deal. Shouldn't we be so thankful that we have a God who chose the route of suffering to understand what suffering is like for us? And we should still take our hardships and our pain to God when we go through suffering, because he understands exactly what it's like to suffer. And not only that, even in his suffering, he still held himself up on that cross, and he still forgave, and he still showed up for us, and he still loved us regardless of what was going on. And he was strong enough to do that. All of that to say, even Jesus understood suffering, and he still understands what we're going through. He still feels our pain. He understands what we're going through in this life, even when it feels like, how could you possibly understand? He knows. And bring your suffering to him, because not only does he understand suffering, but he's strong enough to withhold your suffering. Lay your suffering at his feet. And I wouldn't say that I've done that 100%. I haven't really thought about it much, but what I will say is that I have put my faith in God, and understanding that I know what kind of God that I serve. I know what kind of God I believe in. Yes, am I scared about my diagnosis? Of course I'm scared. Of course I'm worried. I've seen, or at least heard of, like, what my dad's experience is looking like, and of course you associate yourself with that. But at the end of the day, I also know what kind of God I serve. I know what kind of God I believe in, and if it is his will for me to be rid of this disease, or for this disease to never affect my kidneys at all, then that is his will, and that is his way. And if something were to happen to me and my kidneys, and I was to get more sick later on in life, I'm still gonna have to figure out a way to count it all joy, because it's for a reason. And if anything, it just kind of gives me this momentum to just keep pushing and to keep going towards his calling and his purpose, because we all know at some point we gotta go. But to have an idea of how soon you could go, it just makes you think a little bit more about how effectively are you moving? How quickly are you moving? Are you taking your time? Are there going to be things that you regret by the time you get to your deathbed, whether that's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years from now? Are there certain things that you're going to regret later on? I think the overall thing is just lean on God when you're suffering, because he understands suffering. He understands the pain that you're going through, and he is strong enough to handle your suffering if you're willing to give it to him. All right, y'all. We are at the point where we reached the affirmation for this week's episode. And the affirmation for this week is, I am allowed to step away to find myself again. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat that 3 times. If you want to close your eyes, close your eyes. If you want to write this down, however you want to speak this positivity onto your life, find a way to do it. So, I am allowed to step away to find myself again. I am allowed to step away to find myself again. I am allowed to step away to find myself again. All right, y'all, that is all I have for you this week. I hope that with me sharing my story about my medical diagnosis and just what I've been through the last couple of months will help you, will help somebody who is struggling. If you know somebody who has PKD or some sort of medical diagnosis that they recently just got, please share this video with them. If you're going through something where you feel like you need to take some time away from people and just focus on yourself and focus on your health, please let me know if there's anything that I did not mention that you think would be a good idea for people to do. If there's anything that you've learned from your time stepping away from the things that you love and you care about, just so that you can focus more on yourself, please let us know in the comments. If you like this episode and you want to see more, maybe this is the first time you're seeing us, you can go to YouTube at the Hood Soft Life Podcast or any audio streaming platform at the Hood Soft Life Podcast. You can find us there. We are also on TikTok and Instagram at the HSL Pod. If you want to follow me on my personal pages to see a little bit more about my regular day-to-day life, you can follow me on IG and TikTok, both at Sabrina, SABRINA.LIZET, and you can follow me on those platforms. But I really hope that you guys have a great week. It feels so good to be back making content for you guys, and just let me know if there's anything you ever want me to talk about on the podcast. I would love to hear your thoughts. Also, before you go, I'm thinking about doing a segment about advice, like having people write in if they have like questions or if they have, advice that they want me to talk about. And if that's something that you're interested in, just let me know. Comment a purple heart emoji if you want me to talk about advice that you guys write in, or if you want me to do an advice segment. I'm thinking about it. I haven't decided yet. I would be interested, but it's more so like, are you guys interested? So let me know in the comments below by commenting the purple heart. And again, that's all I have for you this week. So I'm gonna catch you on the next one. Bye.